Imagine an apocalyptic event wipes out the human race. You are the sole survivor, standing before a massive, ancient redwood forest. Your own life will soon end, and there are no other people left to experience the planet. All other organic life, however, remains untouched and flourishing. Philosopher Richard Sylvan used this setting to pose a specific question. As the last human, is it morally permissible to destroy this forest for entertainment? One line of reasoning suggests that destroying the trees is acceptable. Because humanity is extinct, there are no future generations to be harmed by the loss of lumber or oxygen. There are no human consequences. A competing reaction finds the destruction of the forest appalling, arguing that leveling these organisms is a moral failure regardless of human presence. Sylvan's scenario functions as a stress test for your baseline worldview, exposing the specific ethical framework you use to judge the natural world. This dilemma sits at the center of environmental ethics, a discipline that emerged alongside the social activism of the 1960s and 70s. The field is divided into two distinct camps: the anthropocentric, or human-centered camp, and the ecocentric, or non-human-centered camp. The division between them depends on how we assign value to the natural world, whether that value is inherent or merely assigned by us. Environmental ethics requires an ontological shift in our definitions, forcing us to decide which entities outside our own species deserve moral consideration. The anthropocentric baseline has served as the historical default for Western civilization. This is the Judeo-Christian dominion framework, analyzed in the 1960s. It places humanity at the apex of a rigid hierarchy. Here, the environment is a storehouse. Animals, plants, and minerals exist to be extracted strictly for human benefit. It is important to note that you can be a dedicated environmentalist while still operating within this anthropocentric model. You might fight climate change, combat resource depletion, or the spread of acid rain, but the motive is self-preservation. These issues matter because they threaten human health, global economies, or the survival of the human race itself. This worth is categorized as instrumental value. Nature is protected only because it is an instrument for human success. In this system, if an organism offers no utility, if it cannot be used for medicine, food, or profit, it holds no moral standing. An anthropocentric system makes nature entirely dependent on its usefulness to us. It has no value of its own. The alternative framework is ecocentrism. It argues that nature possesses a value that is independent of human needs or desires. This worldview has ancient precedents. In Jainism, practitioners established a system of environmental care and nonviolence thousands of years ago. In the 20th century, the movement gained momentum through Rachel Carson, whose book Silent Spring exposed the lethal environmental effects of pesticides. By the 1970s, this field of ethics was formally established, coinciding with the massive public rallies of the first Earth Day. A central figure in this shift was Albert Schweitzer, who developed a philosophical concept he called reverence for life. Schweitzer's logic began with a single certainty: the fact that humans are alive and possess a drive to continue living. He argued that since all living things, from elephants to blades of grass, share this same biological drive, they inherently share our right to exist. This visual shift flattens the hierarchy into an expanding moral circle, where cross-species interactions carry the same ethical weight as human contracts. But this model must account for the fact that nature is inherently predatory, with organisms constantly consuming one another. Schweitzer did not suggest that nature is a flawless moral guide. He acknowledged that ending life is sometimes a biological necessity. However, he set a strict limit. The destruction of life is only permissible for self-defense or basic survival, never for trivial human interests. Reverence for life compels us to recognize the intrinsic value of other organisms, granting them a moral status we cannot casually ignore. While Schweitzer focused on the moral status of individual organisms, other thinkers looked toward the broader ecological system. Philosopher Aldo Leopold recognized that our ecology actually functions on a much larger macro level. Leopold developed a framework known as the land ethic. In Leopold's work, the land refers to the entire biocommunity, a holistic union of soil, water, plants, and animals. This network visualization represents Leopold's demand that we expand our moral consideration beyond individual life forms to the overarching systems that connect them. This approach prioritizes the stability and integrity of the entire ecosystem over the isolated desires of any single species. This framework shifts humanity's role from a conqueror of the Earth to a plain member and citizen of it. When we combine Schweitzer's intrinsic value with Leopold's systems view, we arrive at the complete ecocentric model. Returning to the last human scenario through these ecocentric models, we find a different resolution to the dilemma. Destroying the forest is a moral failure. The intrinsic value of the redwoods and the integrity of the ecosystem exist entirely independent of their utility to a human being. Translating this from a thought experiment into reality changes our relationship with the modern world. If we are citizens of a bio-community, protecting it becomes a strict ethical obligation rather than an optional political preference. This obligation requires a bottom-up approach, focusing on individual behavior and local action rather than waiting for government intervention. This ethics is applied through scientific literacy, changes in transportation, and the use of consumer power to reject products that harm the environment. Environmental footprint calculators provide a literal accounting of our moral impact on the bio-community, turning lifestyle data into a metric of ethical integrity. Environmental ethics demands we move past our human-centered ego and recognize our moral standing is tied to the health of the world we inhabit.